Hey everyone, and welcome to your tutorial on the general overview of how a C++ program works. So I think it'll be helpful in this video to initially outline what question we're trying to answer. And that is, how does a C++ program work? Right, so to understand the answer to this question, or to be able to sort of dig into this question, we need to understand the difference between human readable code and machine code. So as you might know, or maybe this is your first time hearing these terms, but the code we write in an IDE, like we had seen previously in the previous videos, is not actually directly understood by the computer. So that type of code is called human readable code. So if you want to look over to our online IDE for Codiva, this code, which we've seen before, is human readable code. And I know right now it's hard to believe that humans can read this. It seems very difficult, but it is in fact human readable code. Humans wrote it, and other people can read it. So this is human readable code. Now let's contrast this with machine code. So machine code is basically binary, right? So machine code looks something like this. So this is a machine. This is binary code in an ASCII format that reads, or that says hello. So each one of these is a binary representation of a letter in ASCII format, and together they spell hello. So that's what the word looks like to us, and this is what the word looks like to a machine. So the question here now is, how does C++ go from human readable code to machine code? So this happens through a process called compilation. C++ is a compiled language, which means that C++ needs to be processed by a compiler. And so a compiler is a computer program that converts human readable code into machine code. Now, it seems like this is sort of where the story would end. Well, how do we go from human readable to machine code? Well, through a compiler. And that is true. For each C++ file, the compiler will generate an object file, which is a machine code representation of that file. However, if we look back at our coding example, in our source folder here, there can be many different files. So each one of these different files might reference each other. They might reference each other. So for example, if we had like file A, file B, file C, A might reference B, B might reference C, and so on. So the compiler will create a machine code representation of each one of those files called an object file. Now, so I'll just write down here. We'll say these files are called object files. So now we've got a piece of the puzzle down, right? So we've got maybe 3 or 4 or 100 different files that all interconnect. The compiler converts those from human readable code into machine code and produces an object file. Now we have to figure out how all of those files link together. And that's done with a linker. A linker. So a linker takes object files created by the compiler and links or combines them together into one executable file. So the linker takes all of those machine code files that have been created by the compiler and links them together in a meaningful way. So if A references B, B references C, C references, D or whatever, the linker takes that and creates all of those connections and produces an executable file. Now that executable file is something that your computer can understand. So an executable file is the complete machine code representation of the initial human readable instructions. So this final executable file is sort of like the program, right? So this is the program that runs on your computer. So just to recap, the general overview of a C++ program is that we write something like this, and this is human readable code. In our IDE, we press this run button, and we see this sort of result at the end of the console, at the bottom of the screen here in this little window. What's happening behind the scenes is that it's taking this code and it's creating an object file. Later on, we'll learn how other things are sort of, added in and combined. Those are sort of, linked together as well with our object file. And then that linker produces an executable. And that's what's running behind the scenes. And that produces this result at the bottom of the screen, right? So we wrote our human readable code. We pressed our run button. The compiler takes, X number of files, produces an object file, which is in machine code, and then the linker creates the connections between those files and produces an executable. Behind the scenes in our development environment, in the cloud, they have a computer that's taking that executable file and running it, and then it's feeding the result of that executable file to our window down here. And so that's everything that's happening at a high level of abstraction when we click this run button. So that's kind of like a sort of very general overview of how a C++ program works. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We're going to dig deeper into this stuff, but just from the beginning, it's good to know how this stuff works generally, just so if we get an error like a linker error or something in the future, we'll know, oh, I know what a linker is, and I know the general steps of how this stuff is working. So thanks for watching, and I will see you when I post the next video. Thanks.